Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and this week is going to be a very interesting week because it's during the holiday season and it's been all kinds of crazy for me. I hope it hasn't been super crazy for you. If it has been, I do apologize, and I hope things get a little bit better for you. But this week, I'm going to just do a very simple episode about New Year's resolutions and what Glovers can do for their said New Year's resolutions. Of course, it's very simple for a lot of people to sit there and think, oh yeah, I can just make a New Year's resolution and call it a day. To some people, it's not so easy. So what I want to do is kind of help people out with some of the bit of advice that people have shared with me on the internet, so I can actually explore it onto you guys. So that way you guys will actually have some ideas of what you guys can think of for your New Year's resolutions, what you can work on in the coming year. Of course, so the first thing I always ask is, what is any advice you can give to a new Glover for the upcoming decade? So starting with my Facebook account, I'm going to go from there to Reddit and then go on from there as always. So of course, one person had to say that whips can be just as exciting as tech, and I definitely agree with that. I feel like whips in any form of liquid is just as important as any form of tech. And again, we can go on and on and on about how tech is a very ambiguous term that goes beyond just simple tutting or king tutting or digiting or stacking or clusters or any of that. Yes, those do heavily rely on tech, but tech means technique, of course. But again, I kind of digress. So another person definitely wanted to say that when it comes to working on your tuts, that you want to make sure you're keeping your hands flat and they're just as important as the angles you're making. So I do definitely agree with that. If you're working on your tutting and you're working on your any form of grid work like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping your hands nice and flat. I know that is extremely difficult, but there are a couple things that people have done in the past that I've seen people do to make it work for them. With that being said, we're actually going to move on to another one. A person says to use the Z-axis more, which to some people they didn't understand what they meant by that. So let me pretty much explain. So when you look at grid work, if you think of a grid, you have X and Y, but Z is an additional part of that where it brings it into a more three-dimensional space. So if you're thinking what X is X is pretty much left to right, Y is pretty much up and down, Z is pretty much forward and backwards. I know a lot of people think that the Z portion of the grid work is not as important, but it can be just as important depending on the concepts that you're using. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's super important when it comes to clusters, but I can see people incorporating the Z-axis with clusters and making it work just as fine. But again, that really all comes down to you as a Glover to do that. So another person definitely wanted to say, clean up your flow, nice and easy speed, work on your rolls, connections, and find songs that you like and practice your musicality with those. I will certainly say that I will actually be planning on making an episode where I can actually help you guys find songs that are nice and slow. So if you're the type of person who needs to work on slowing down, I can definitely help you find certain songs that actually help you with that. Mostly just because I listen to a lot of down-tempo style music as it is, so I'm very used to having that very slow pace for music. But that's just me. I know not a lot of everybody's into that stuff, and I wish they would, but, to each its own. So, another person on the Reddit portion said pretty much slow down. A lot of EDM can be high tempo, and you feel like you have to keep up. You don't have to keep up. You can skip a beat or two as long as you keep it consistent and smooth like the show should be, and you should look fine, And of course, he said, P.S. slow down. So, here's one thing I definitely want to let a lot of the newcomers know. When it comes to the term, or when people say slow down, it doesn't mean you literally have to come down to a slow pace, a snail's pace, basically. What they're really meaning is if you're doing a technique or you're doing a concept, you really want to slow down your movements to accentuate each set of movements, So a lot of the times, we kind of get caught up in things and we just kind of move everything in one fluid motion. A way for me to slow down is to actually break up those movements. So instead of having like a pivot and a hinge happening at the same time, I would do a pivot and then a hinge. You want to break down your movements as possible. If you're thinking like, oh, do I have to look like a robot? Go ahead and try it being like a robot. It's a way to examine trying to slow down. So if you want to be very robotic in your movements to try to help you slow down so you can actually do the move, stop, move, stop, move, stop mentality, definitely go with that. Okay. It's pretty much the biggest thing what everyone talks about when it comes to, summer resolutions is just slowing down. To me, when it comes to slowing down, it's just literally break down your steps even further, because the more steps you're having to do, the slower you're making your way through the concept, therefore slowing down. That's the kind of idea that I kind of want to impound upon you, or implore upon you, excuse me. So if you're the type of glover who has the resolution of just slowing down, just think about it that way. It's just like, okay, how about I actually break down the steps even further to even smaller steps to slow myself down. Like that, to me, that kind of like the natural progression. Okay. To the other glovers out there who are like stuck on a concept, like let's just say, for example, tutting, just making it as simple as possible. I can totally understand your frustration when it comes to trying to learn tutting, because it took me forever to learn tutting. The whole concept of how tutting operates was beyond me for a good long while. So I can totally understand why you would be very, very frustrated when you're not getting it. Do not let that frustration eat you alive, because it's just not going to get you anywhere. If you're having trouble figuring it out, take a break from it. Okay, just don't bog yourself down so much of just trying to master a concept. Just take a break from it, work on something else, work on a completely different concept, even one that you know so very well on, before you try coming back to it. Number one reason why I always say that is because sometimes we kind of oversaturate ourselves with the thought process, and once we are locked on that thought process, we can't break out of it. And to me, the only way you can actually break out of that mentality is that you're just doing something completely different that isn't on that same mentality. So, I'm not even saying you have to continue gloving in order for you to go back to that concept and learn it. Like, you can do anything else. I can even tell you from my own personal experience, if I wasn't feeling like gloving, I'll probably just go and start writing if I feel like writing. Or I would, go work on some other stuff that I like to do. Sometimes I just like to draw. So drawing sometimes helps me come back to a concept and be like, holy crap, how did I not figure this out first? Oh, that's right. That's just how it tends to be. If you're somebody who's working on a lot of liquid type stuff, I will definitely want to recommend, studying certain tutorials and watching how they talk about the form of it, and then just working on your forms. One major thing I definitely want to say to a lot of newcomers when it comes to liquiding is that your fingers rolling in and out don't have to be as fast as how your hands are moving. You'd be surprised of how often people will actually do whips and they're keeping their fingers just fully extended and they're just doing the whips, and all they're using is their wrist accesses to actually pull off those whips. So, something I always want to explain or try to help people understand is that there's always different ways to learn new things, and so definitely want you to try to always look for different ways to learn things. It's one of those things that I feel that some people can do is just work on that. Okay, so I will certainly tell you that some of my New Year's resolutions for this year is, first of all, the one thing I definitely want to get going and actually get happening regularly is interviews. I do have a couple of people who are willing to do interviews. I actually just need to try to coordinate a time and a place that I can actually sit down and we can actually do this and get everything set up. I definitely want to try to have these interviews as a live stream. I am considering using YouTube as that platform because I feel like YouTube is much more stable for things like that and for a longer period of time. Not only that, you guys can actually be interacting with us while the interview is happening. So that's something I definitely want to make sure is possible, because I might have like 25 questions, but we can probably burn through those 25 questions in 5 minutes and then have, another 55 minutes of something to talk about. Uh, so it's something I do want to avoid is not having enough questions to ask the interviewer and have enough material for us to work on. But that is something I'm going to be trying to do for this podcast, is that you get these interviews going. If you think there's a better platform for me to do these interviews, live streams for the community, let me know. I know most of you might just say do it on Facebook, which I kind of really don't want to. Mostly just because then we have to use our phones, and that's the only way that you can actually have multi-face camera viewing happening, and it just sounds way more complicated than just having two webcams and two computers and talking to each other that way. So that's where I want to go about it, is trying to make it a little bit easier on myself. Another thing I definitely want to say that I'm going to have as a resolution for myself is actually try to be a lot more active in the community and be a lot more interactive in the groups with people. I know I haven't been doing a whole lot. It's just because life right now has just been a little crazy for me, but that's totally fine. I can always adapt. That's one of our greatest strengths as human beings, is adaptability. So yeah, I definitely feel like I have a lot on my plate, but in reality I don't really think I do. I'm probably just psyching myself out. But it's totally fine. I am one of those type of people who really likes to try to push themselves and actually really push themselves out of their comfort zones to see how far they can actually go. And so interviews, of course, is something I definitely want to do. I'm going to try to make product reviews happen a little bit more often. I know episode 26 or something was my first product review before episode 51 or 52. For the second one, so I know that's a big gap, so I definitely want to try to close that, or make it a little bit closer, so it's actually maybe one every 10 or 15 episodes instead of being a whole 25 episodes before you get another review. I definitely want to do more reviews on products that we use as a gloving community, mostly just because it isn't just the lights that we use. We use gloves, we use casings, we use diffusers, we use whatever the case may be to accentuate our craft. And that's something I'm going to try to work on as well, is actually test and grade different gloves or different diffusers or different casings or anything like that. Most of the time, if I'm doing a light product review, you're probably going to also get the casing review in it, just because it's the time they get the new casings with them, so might as well just review them while I have them. Another resolution for me that I would definitely want to do is more live streams. I didn't really think I was going to be a fan of doing live streams, but I actually have a lot of fun doing live streams, especially when you guys are very interactive and actually communicating with me on those live streams. Really, really great. I thoroughly enjoy those. So those are pretty much my resolutions right there for the podcast, is to try to get more product reviews coming out, kind of make that a little bit more regular. Getting interviews going and actually having that be a little bit more regular, because I would like to have a lot more members of the community to come on the show and talk about their experiences and give any advice to all the newcomers that are coming in, and of course me just doing more live streams so I can be more interactive with the community as a whole is something I also want to work on. Another thing I had people ask me about from time to time is if I'm ever going to do any videos. I would like to do videos. The only thing is I'm by myself doing all this, and it takes already a lot of work to do just audio editing and stuff like that. Granted, yes, it's super easy to do it, but it does take a lot of time. It is a lot of time consumption just doing editing and revamping everything. That the idea of me trying to do that with video is overwhelming. What I would like to see happen is somebody approach me about collaborating and working as a team to actually do a video portion of the show and actually get the channel much bigger that way. Mostly just because I don't think I can handle both video and audio podcasting at the same time all by myself while working an almost full-time job and everything all on top of that. So I would like to extend a hand out to anyone who wants to endeavor on this expedition of doing video podcasting and actually doing video editing and stuff. I'm more than open do a discussion about it, because not only would I actually like to have a video portion for my podcast so you guys can see my ugly mug, but I can actually have like tutorial videos, and I can actually have visual aids to help you guys understand what I'm talking about when it comes to certain things, because I know with audio only we lose out on the visual aspect to help convey what I'm trying to say. And so I would really like to do video, I just don't think I can do it all by myself. So as an extension out to anybody, if you are somebody who's into video filming and video editing and you really want to get, more hands-on with it, hit me up. We'll actually have a discussion on it, because I would like to get something like that going as well. I think it would be really, really fun. I feel like it would be an excellent endeavor for me to try out, and who knows, it might actually work out in the end. But we'll have to just wait and see. But that's pretty much it for my episode. As my final thoughts to all my newcomers and all the new gen people who've coming into the fold of gloving pretty much within the past 3 years or so, I want to say, I could probably extend that out to 5, but let's just say 3 for right now. First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for embarking on this journey that is gloving. It is probably one of the funnest journeys you're probably going to have in your entire life. I will certainly say for myself that gloving has truly redefined every aspect of my life ever since it's been introduced to me in my life. So, my first bit of advice is pretty much what everyone is going to tell you: slow down. The best way that I feel is going to help you slow down is if you break down the moves even further, because then once you're adding more steps into it, you're realizing you're slowing yourself down by adding those steps into it. Okay, so therefore you can actually learn how to accentuate your movements so it's readable to your audience. Okay. The second thing I definitely want to expound on is that if you're trying to learn a concept that you're just having so much trouble getting over that hurdle, take a break from it, work on something else. It doesn't have to be gloving, but don't be focused on it, because it's weird how the brain works this way sometimes, but it locks itself into a mode, and once it's locked into mode, sometimes you can't think any other way besides that mode. So taking a break and moving away from that concept and working on something else that is not so focused on said concept is going to help. Okay, and another big piece of advice I want to give to everybody, especially new gen, old gen, whatever the case may be, however far you are in your gloving career, the ultimate thing that you need to just remember, regardless of being in competitions or posting videos or going to festivals or any other events where you're having to put yourself out there, the ultimate thing you need to just remember is to have fun with it. It is all that this craft is about, is just having fun and expressing yourself the way that you want to express yourself. You do not need to bind yourself to these standards that everyone else puts themselves on or put other people on, because some of them are really unrealistic, but at the same time, some of them are, and it's not bad to have those kind of goals, but your number one goal when it comes to gloving is for you to actually have fun. If it's just throwing your hands around and watching people smile is the only cure for you to enjoy yourself when you're gloving, then that's great, because that's probably the number one reason why people glove, is because they like seeing the reactions from people and seeing people being awed by the amount of work they put into their craft. People want to see their work and effort recognized for it. So do not beat yourself up if you feel like you're very far behind. Trust me, and I mean it, trust me, we've all started somewhere before, and we all sucked at it at the very beginning, okay? So do not let yourself get bogged down. Do not get discouraged because of how much talent is out there. You should be using that as fuel for your motivation to push yourself, okay? Anytime I watch competition videos and I see somebody do something really awesome, it motivates me to learn it and come up with a different version of it for myself. And I guess for one last bit of advice, that if you are working on a concept that you feel like you came up yourself, but then you already saw somebody do it and you feel like abandoning it, do not abandon your concept. Just because somebody came up with it before you does not make you unoriginal, okay? I always tell people, collaborate instead of limitate. All right, that's one of the things that I love about the gloving community as a whole, as it is that we can put all these other things aside and just work on our craft together and better our craft together. So that's pretty much all I have to say. That's, this episode again is pretty short. I know I'm probably running around like 20 minutes or so, and I tend to ramble on like always, but you know what? I like rambling. It's great. It's like venting. It's just a good feeling afterwards. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I know it wasn't like the super serious educational episode. It's more of a device and kind of reflecting back on 2019 as a whole. I would say 2019 for gloving was an interesting year, to say the least. We had some ups and downs going on, but overall I feel like gloving's in a good place, and I feel like we can always push it to get into a better place. So if you have any questions that were not even covered in this episode, you can always hit me up at the various outlets that I have. I do have a Facebook page, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can always hit me up there. That's usually where I'm hanging out the most, because that's where most of you guys hit me up at, as it is. But you do have other places. I do have Reddit that you can always hit me up. I am in the gloving community on Reddit under the username Mutton Chop Guys, so you can always hit me up there. And don't hesitate to ask me any questions. I'm always willing to answer. Of course, I also have an email that you guys can also shoot me an email at, which is at muttonchopguy@gmail.com. You can always hit me there. Very rarely do I get any emails from you guys there, but I've had a couple, and I've responded as quickly as possible, and I always had wonderful conversations with those said people. So thank you for the people who use my email. And lastly, of course, I do have a Discord server, which the link to that will be in this episode's description. Like always, you can always hit me up there. It's totally free to join. You don't have to pay any money, and you can make fun of me all the time over there all you want. I'm totally fine with that. Now, a couple other things. I do know that I did hit my 200 milestone on my likes. I am trying to schedule a time where I can actually do my Ask Me Anything live stream. It's just been a little crazy. I think it might be sometime just after the first of the year. Just so we're past the holiday season and we're not having to deal with that kind of crap anymore. So thank you guys so much for listening to my episode. If it wasn't for you guys, this channel would not be possible. So thank you so much for you guys' unspoken support. Is huge to me. I don't even care. You guys never respond to me or even ask me any questions or make any comments. It's totally fine. As long as you guys are listening and actually just taking what I have to say into consideration is everything that I actually just want, So thank you guys so much for listening. I love you guys. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.